changes and debates over changes, one of the screens will show the changes that are proposed. Item number 3, interests. As usual, I would ask anyone who has an interest to declare it at the appropriate time in the meeting and to ensure that you maintain your interests register. Item number 4, public forum. No one has indicated an interest in being here for our public forum today. So that brings us to the principal reason for our meeting today, which is the adoption of the annual report for the year ending 30th of June 2018. And I will invite to the table 3 of our expert staff to present the report. Thank you, Nikki, and Tracy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here to present the adoption of the annual report for the year ended 30th of June 2018. As you're aware, the draft annual report went to the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee meeting in September 2018, and I'm pleased to say that there are very few changes from the draft report that was presented to that committee at that point in time. So the annual report shows an accounting surplus of 11.4 million, which is 4.4 million less than budget, and a lot of that is around non-cash items. Audit New Zealand are here today to answer any questions that you may have, and they have also requested that we make a slight amendment to the resolution that incorporates the audit opinion, which I can confirm is an unmodified audit opinion. So happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
Particularly in the area where we came into this particular council knowing that our infrastructure was in need of upgrade and repair and improvement. I think we've achieved a lot in that area, and the report outlines totally a very good picture, a very good report on what council has done as compared to what it said it would try and do through its annual plan and its other plans that it has. I think the achievements that you see in the report demonstrate an effective and successful council. So with those opening remarks, I'll ask councillors if they have any questions. Now is the time to ask those questions. I've got Councillor Laurie, followed by Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my first question just relates to when you look through the things that we said we were going to provide throughout the year, and you've got this panel down the right, achieved, not achieved. So I get to page 39, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goals, things that council would provide, and all 6 of them get not achieved. I go to the next page, the first 3, not achieved, no result, no result.
Hang on, I just want to make sure we're on the right page. What page are you looking at?
I'm on
the numbers of the report page or the numbers of the agenda?
Agenda page 41.
Thank you.
So I started on 39, everything on that page not achieved. Then I went to page 40, 3 not achieved, 2 no results. Then I get to 41, 2 not achieved, no, 3 not achieved, 3 achieved, 1 not measured. And it's kind of similar if I keep going through the report. So I did hear what you said at the start, Mr. Chairman, about the achievements for council, but then I'm on page 58 now. 3 things we were going to do, not achieved, not achieved, not achieved. Can someone give me, this concerns me, seeing these red not achieved marks, and I'm sure it would concern members of the public who picked up the report. So could I get some thoughts on that, please?
Through the chair, yes, I'll just start by saying that to reassure you, the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee did have a very good discussion on this issue, and we had staff available from all the areas of activities to comment on areas of performance and non-performance. So that has been gone through in the committee. We have had a less successful year in terms of those LTP targets this year. Some of that is around needing to set better targets ourselves in the long-term plan, which we have tried to do. So you'll see in some of those that there are targets there that it's difficult for council to have control over. And we've tried to reduce that sort of target setting for the latest LTP, which should see some improvement there. But staff in each activity area did come and discuss what the challenges were and what they were doing to improve achievement in future at that Audit, Risk and Finance meeting.
So through the chair, I'm not on that committee, so that's the reason I wasn't there for that conversation. But does this mean, through the chair, that the targets we set for this year were unrealistic, given that we have so many not achieved? So.
Through the chair, I think from the discussion there, you'd have to say it was a mixture of reasons. That was some of it, not all of it. And staff have taken learnings from those areas where we haven't achieved, and they've taken that learning into the next long-term plan, partly in how they set targets, but also in what they're doing to better meet the ones that we haven't done well on.
I'll have to go back and watch the video of that meeting. I've got another question, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. I will. It's good that it was videoed. Videos are good. So I've got another question. It's about, I think it's just the way it gets, well, two questions. One, it says in our achievements for transport, it lists one of council's achievements as being the Mai Tai to Rocks Road walkway cycleway. Now, first of all, that piece of infrastructure does not go to Rocks Road. We keep saying it goes to Rocks Road. It doesn't. It goes to Wakefield Quay. Rocks Road is a long way away from where that pathway finishes. So I really think we need to change that wording in the report, and we need to stop referring to that project as the Mai Tai to Rocks Road pathway, because that's not what it is. And I know NZTA call it that.
Points
but I think we need to change it.
Call it that, and we have traditionally called it that, but it's worth looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. And my other point is, it is included, that project, in the list of our achievements for transport, but it isn't a council project. It was an NZTA project, and I don't think council had much to do with it. So I'm surprised to see it listed in here amongst our achievements. Any thoughts on that?
I just respond to you in respect to that to say that it's our city. We work in partnership with NZTA, and what we do together, I think we can both claim that we've achieved things. It's for the benefit of our city, and we all live in the city. We work with NZTA very closely, and semantically, you're probably correct, but in reality, we work together. Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to our officers. Officer Nikki, I want to draw your attention to 5.9 and 5.19 in the officer's report on page 8.
5.9 or 5.19?
Sorry, 5.19, page 8. It's in relation to the 2018 resident survey. 36% of the residents were satisfied, and here's where I want some explanation, or very satisfied with the opportunities to provide feedback. Now, is that in reaction to a question in the survey, the opportunities to provide feedback? I mean, I would have liked to have seen one there on performance or other measures, but just stating there the opportunity to provide feedback, I just need some clarity on that. And really, when you look at it, through you, Mr. Chair, 3 years ago, the result was 53% on whatever that measure means there, the opportunity to provide feedback. And we are lying on this table, very concerned about that. We should be, and we are. So I want to know what you're going to do in your role to help us. I think we have a position, we have a responsibility too, if you don't mind me saying so, and I could spend 5 minutes on that. I think each and every one of us around this table has a responsibility in the area of communication, no question about it. And do you think we're doing it well enough? No, I don't. So, but I want to ask you, what are you going to do about it?
Yes, through the chair, a couple of comments I could make. Yes, the wording is the opportunity to provide feedback. That was the target that council, or the objective council, had set itself in the long-term plan, so that is what we had to ask. One thing I would say about the way we survey on that question, I think what we are looking to do next time is to supplement it more, because there's a difference between sort of cold calling people that may have had no contact with council or even much interest in particular projects over a year, and actually capturing people who've had interactions and then understanding how well that interaction has gone. So I think we can supplement this surveying for next time so that you get a better picture of the range of views. In terms of what we can do better in this space, one thing that we are doing is developing a communications and engagement strategy, and we would like to have governance oversight of that area, which hasn't happened in the past. So we're going to be asking council to delegate that to the governance committee, and that they approve the development of that strategy and then have an ongoing role in its implementation. So you'll be getting regular reporting about how we're doing in exactly that space.
Thank you
so much for that, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Courtney.
I have a range of other questions, but I might just share some space and some time with other councillors. But I don't share altogether, respectfully, I don't share your optimism in respect of our basic infrastructure. So I have a few questions
Courtney,
around.
I think I'll leave your comments till later.
Let me finish, please. I have a question.
Sorry. I'm looking for questions. Are you going to get to a question, were you?
I just said I have a question coming.
Okay. Please get to it.
You happy with that?
Yep.
From a governance point of view, we had a vision. And at the top of that vision was infrastructure. And it's disconcerting to see that all our targets, particularly in respect of infrastructure and the three waters, have not been met. And so for our chair to claim he's very proud of what we've achieved in the way of infrastructure, and the three waters have been abysmal. Am I correct in that assumption? Because I'm thinking of stormwater. It runs so free over, and has done for decades, over the city. And yet that's the one that's been cut. Only a third of the budget has been spent on that. So how are we going to remedy that? Are we going to blame the weather events? What is our strategy going forward? Because we've got to lift our performance in stormwater.
Through the chair, I think that's not something that you would want me to answer, which is why at Audit and Risk we had the people from the different activities to speak to their areas. That's probably something that you might want to take up in Works and Infrastructure going forward, rather than looking at the previous year.
Perhaps I could direct it through to the Chairman of the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee to answer that.
I don't think that's appropriate at this stage. Have you got further questions?
Abundance of questions, but I said I'd be courteous and let others.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but I wouldn't mind some
The
reaction.
executive has a comment.
So one of the issues, again, about reporting against these KPIs now is it's too late. So that's why the next round of committee meetings, we will be starting to report on the KPIs for each activity. So councillors can see how we're going against those KPIs and have a discussion about have we got the resources in the right places, why are we missing one, so that 4 times a year during the year you will have an opportunity to look at those KPIs and make an assessment. It really is too late now. The year's obviously long gone, and we are making changes. You know, one of the things you approved in the long-term plan was lifting council performance. Some of that was about extra staff numbers. Some of those are going into the projects team. We're changing the way that we manage our projects, trying to get more streamlined so that we do start to deliver better against our projects and against our KPIs.
Thanks, Mr. Chief Executive. Next, have Councillor Rutledge with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I agree that there's probably limited benefit to be gained from sort of looking backwards at all this stuff and more to be gained from looking forward. So with that in mind, 5.14 and 5.28. So we talk about some of our missed targets in the transport sector, and then in 5.14, and then in 5.28 128, it looks like we left a bit of money on the table from NZTA. And it would appear to me that those two things are probably quite closely linked. If we haven't spent some money on road surfacing, for example, and then we have extra road roughness as a result. I understand the staffing pressures and ability to deliver projects has been constrained in the past. I'm just wondering if we can get a bit of an update from the Chief Executive about how things are looking going forward and our success so far in implementing the staff recruitment policies, and so we can, I guess, get all the money that we should be from NZTA, deliver the projects and hit our targets.
Chief Executive, would you care to have a look at those transport matters and comment?
Look, can I say in general terms, our one of the issues we had was our staff turnover was so high that we were losing ground. We couldn't fill our vacancies as fast as they were being created. Our turnover is now down, I think, slightly below the local government average, so we're making progress on filling the vacancies that we already had and making good progress on recruiting the extra staff we need. But that's still a long, slow process. Sometimes we have to advertise a job a couple of times to make sure we get the right person, because that's critical. So by the end of this financial year, we'll be in a much stronger position. I think we are steadily improving. We've got some extra resources in the transport team. I think there's still another couple we need. Mr. Levertis would be better able to comment on that. But we are trying to recruit for positions right across the organisation. And I have to say that most of the time, well, actually, no, we are very, very pleased with the calibre of the applicants we're appointing. They're bringing strength to the organisation. But if, with the Chair's permission, Mr. Levertis could talk about where we are with recruiting for the transport team.
I think we can do that.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I can actually comment across the board, not just for the transport team, but across all our work programs. We're well on our way to advertising all vacant positions. We've commenced interviews, shortlisting on a number of them. We've made several offers. A lot of those people will be starting towards, or some of those people will be starting towards the end of December. Others will be in the new year. I'm hopeful that by the end of this financial year we'll have all those positions filled, and I think there's about 7. But it is a slow process, but it's they're all been advertised, and it's well underway in terms of resources.
Thank you for that. I think over my time on council, if we achieve what Mr. Levertis is saying, that is a really significant improvement. So yeah, well done.
Councillor Laurie, you have a further question.
I do, thank you. I do, thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. On page 36, it talks about the number of people cycling to school, to work. It doesn't say school, it just says work. And it also talks on the next page about people using public transport. And it says that according to the residents survey, the number of people travelling to work by bicycle has decreased from 10% to 8%. And that, I don't see that reflected, if it's true, I don't see it reflected in bike stands, the number of bikes that have got bikes on them, the number of people I see riding bikes, the number of people I see buying bikes, the number of bikes I see at Nelson Intermediate, going down the Railway Reserve, etc. And I just think it seems like a pretty strange way to measure how many people are riding bikes to work using a residents' telephone survey. The telephone survey.
So your question is?
How reliable is that data? Because I would have thought when we're making plans for how we spend our money in terms of transport, we'd be using something more scientific to measure something that important than a telephone survey.
Okay, the question is taken. Do we have someone to answer that question on the survey system to determine the numbers of bike commuters? Because I think it's a matter of perception. I don't perceive it the same as you do, to be honest.
That would go for a number of subjects.
Nikki, would you like to
Through the chair, I mean, the size of the resident survey is statistically significant, which is why we picked the number of people, so it should give us a good guide. In the past, the census has had questions on this which give you a better, much better guide. We've also got a new staff member working in travel demand management who will be looking more closely at this, and we may be able to get some better understanding through that work.
Through the chair, don't we have other stats? Don't we have, are our most recent stats, apart from what we've got from this survey, old census numbers?
We'd have to get someone from the transport team to answer that. I can find out for you and let you know, but my understanding is the resident survey is our most recent.
Right, so through the chair, does the transport team think that significantly fewer people are cycling to work?
So, through the chair, if I may, to add on what Ms MacDonald has said, we rely on that data, and that is what the data is telling us. It's significant in terms of the data is significant, and we rely on that. I don't know if I can add any additional comment. I can add that our travel demand position has been filled. That's been filled for about 2 weeks now, and Kim Treadwell will be pursuing travel demand management not only within this building but within a whole range of businesses around Nelson. So we hope to get traction pretty soon. But in terms of the data, we rely on that data as reported.
So, sorry, through the chair, how many people, I'm sorry if I missed it when Councillor Courtney was asking the question before, but how many people are surveyed? 400, okay. And my next question is, are they all landline?
Through the chair, in previous years we've used all landline, but because that's becoming less reliable source, we supplemented this year with a number of door-to-door calls to get interviews to make sure we had a representative sample. So it's not all landline this year.
And my last question through the chair is, so will we use these stats for planning future cycle, walking, public transport?
Through the chair, we look at these statistics, and that's exactly why the RTC, for example, gave a big focus on travel demand management, walk cycle, put in substantial capital monies to look at cycle park, etc., etc. So yes, we have taken this data very seriously, as has the RTC and council, and we've resourced up, and we will be actioning those and planning accordingly. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to the census numbers.
Yes, it will be interesting to see how the census compares, because I believe what we're seeing in the data that we're getting is not uncommon in the country. And much as we'd like to see it otherwise, we have to rely on the most reliable form of data collection that we have, and we're doing our best to get the very most reliable. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, interesting read in detail in the reports on this, and some of the outlook on. It's a bit of a lolly mixture. A bit of a lolly mixture of some sweet and some sour achievements, and some bit sugar-coated in here. But some of the good news here, and I just want a bit of feedback on, is on page 9, 5.27, where our fees and charges have brought in a near 3 million more than budget. And understand we've got $1 million unbudgeted income rising from some offset in the sewage business unit. And the next one, we got 300k extra income from the Tahuna campground, which is good news. And also $1 million coming in from the landfill. Are they sort of a bit of a one-off? I know the landfill, we've changed our model somewhat with a combination of TDC and ourselves, and with the Tahuna campground. It's a great asset there. Were they sort of one-off positive blips, or is that sort of indication of ongoing of 300 for camp and $1 million for landfill?
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. I'll ask Ms Harrison to respond.
So through the chair, as far as I'm aware, the Tahuna Beach Camp is performing really well. I mean, obviously the summer will be a key, driver of what next year's rental income will be. But from my understanding, the revenue through there is going well. The landfill really that isn't in relation, so we budgeted for a joint landfill with TDC. The extra income is reflecting the volumes going through there, and they are substantially higher, and that has continued into the first quarter of this year as well. So it just reflects activity at the, business activity and, obviously waste activity at this point in time of the economic cycle.
Thank you. Councillor Skinner, does that complete your question?
Good news, and the other one there is, and 5.28, the next paragraph down, transport again, less spent on the transport capital program than anticipated. Once again, is that, just trying to get my head around that, why we spent less than anticipated. We've made some achievements and some non-achievements.
So through the Chair, that really does reflect the delays in the capital program. So obviously, as projects are completed, we collect the NZTA portion of that income. So that really is just reflecting the CapEx spend during the year.
And last question, Mr. Chair. On page 39, once again, so looking at our almost traffic lights here, we've got a lot of reds, and I understand, for example, on page 39, some of those reds are, like you said, out of our control about some of the unfortunate instances or crashes, etc., maybe out of our control. But then I look at the efficient transport, and especially of Waimea Road, we seem to be down and not achieving. And once again, we've set some targets. Were these targets higher than what we've been getting, or have we really increased our travel time on those major routes?
So through the Chair, I'll answer two questions that you asked. In terms of the NZTA spending, one of the projects that we didn't get completed last financial year was the Saltwater Creek Bridge, which was NZTA funded, so that accounts for that expenditure. In connection with the data is it is what it is, and it reflects where we are for the last financial year. What we have done in terms of our new level of service KPIs, we have tried to reflect. We've gone through all these levels of services, and we've tried to reflect achievable or measurable KPIs. There are a number in there in terms of deaths and injuries. There's an upward trend across the whole country, and we're looking already that we may exceed that trend. But the rest of them, the data that's reflected in here reflects the situation as for last year. So that's looking back. Looking forward, we've relooked at all those level of service KPIs.
Yes, so to me, it's maybe different to some of the commentators earlier, thinking we can't look back, but very much so we should be looking back, looking at this if we are going to look forward. And it concerns me that some of these, the transport, especially Waimea Road, Annisbrook, and looking back what's happened, and if we're looking forward with some of the changes that may be happening, we may have some concerns on our hands.
That's a fair comment. Of course, we are well into the next year now, so now's the time to be taking account of anything that we can learn from the past. Councillor Courtney, you have another question?
Yes, I do. Two or three. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Officer Nikki. With the shortfall, on the capital works program from 72 million to 39 million was the actual spend on capital works. I want to know, does that money that carry over, or does it just go that we haven't spent? So I calculate about 25 million not spent. Does that carry over, roll over to next year, or does it just lessen debt? Please.
So through the Chair, there was obviously when you look at 5.40 onwards, it has had a significant impact on our debt as at the year end. So we are actually under our debt. External borrowings were 96.4 million at the year end, and it had been predicted to be significantly higher. So some of it was carried forward, and that went through the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee in September. but not all of it was carried forward because we were cognizant of the impact on this year's capital program. So we wanted to keep this year's capital program at a realistic amount around the $40 million mark. So some of that funding that wasn't spent last year was effectively given up and will be reconsidered through next year's annual plan. But I think the real focus is on not just carrying it forward and having a capital program of 60 million is just not realistic. So we wanted to have just, not set ourselves unrealistic targets. So it was a combination of releasing and some of it was carried forward.
Thank you, Ms Harrison.
Another one around transport, picking up on Councillor Rutledge and Laurie's talk about discussion about questions about transport. That's, we only achieved less than 50% of our goal there. And as a flow-on effect of that, we received NZTA subsidies, quite a dramatic drop there. So that's a real downside, isn't it, of not meeting a target by 63% in the area of transport. We also lose out on these NZTA subsidies. It's quite a significant amount.
So through the Chair, it's really just a delay in receiving the subsidies. These projects are still on the books, and certainly where they are NZTA subsidised projects, we will continue to deliver them. And as Mr Laverde said, one of those significant ones was the Saltwater Creek, and that is on, it's in this year's capital program to be delivered.
Councillor Courtney. Thank you for your questions today, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Dalberg.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the report. I just would like to note that the work that we're actually doing out of the Ordinary Risk on reviewing meaningful targets and KPI. We've got a lot of red in there, but as we've already covered, that a lot of that is maybe meaningful targets, and also the fact that we had a target budget for capital works of 60 mil, which is never achievable. I'd like to thank the CE for pointing that out, that 20 mil is a better target, and it'll also help our staff stay on track what they need to do. So probably the question to the CE would be, with the staff activity and the lower turnover, do we actually think now we are on target for the coming year? And I'm talking about the report, but the changes we have made, do we think we are on target to hit that 40 mil of capital works without going back to wasted energy and reviewing money we were never going to spend?
Good question.
At the moment, we've got, I think, 4 or 5 vacancies in that projects team of about 16 to 18, so we are short of resources in that area. We're recruiting as fast as we can. We've changed the way we run the projects to make more use of external consultants and less direct work inside to better leverage our resources. I think we'll get closer to 40 million this year than we did last year, but I think it'll probably be year 2 before we start consistently getting close to that $40 million level. We're certainly trying, and I think we're off to a better start this quarter than we have been in terms of CapEx. You'll see that coming through soon, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge this year, but we are focused on it and making a lot of changes to make it easier for the projects team to, and it's not just the projects team. I mean, I think out of the last year, out of the 40 million, the capital projects team was responsible for some, I think about 23. The infrastructure teams were responsible for maybe another 9, and the other 8 was roughly spread across the whole organisation. But it is a focus. It is something that's being watched much more closely, and also now the quarterly reports to the committees will be talking about all the major projects and progress, so that the governance, that the council will have a better view of what is happening in that space, and again, just won't see it at the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So following up on that there again, that was one of those projects we seem to find some of the scoping work, things like contingency funds were not adequate. Do we think going forward the work we've put around our project, I suppose reporting or analysis, is actually going to improve those outcomes?
Yes, I think so. It's, dare I say it, our project managers are much more aware of risk and pricing it, and pricing uncertainty. I think when we finally adopted the capital budgets for this year, I think they had increased by a couple of $1 million to recognise additional risk. I think, was that right, or across the, yes. So, and some of that was to do with uncertainty. So we are in a better space, but as I've used the analogy several times, we're a big boat with a small motor, and it takes us a while to accelerate to meet the councillors' levels of expectations, but we are certainly well on track.
Through Mr. Chair, I appreciate the work done on that, and I know going forward, I'm looking forward to not us having to go back and reaction works that should have been done. We won't mention the name, but another question probably to the staff then is the external debt. I'm reading your page 11, 5.9, and we're sort of talking about 96 mil of debt, and then we're talking about it's 118, and then it goes to 84. It looks like we didn't spend 34 million. And that was part of that 20 mil we took out, so some numbers in there. Can you give us probably an accurate reading? So what exactly is our external debt? I'm reading page 12 and 5.44. We've achieved a lot of good stuff. Rates, balancing budgets, debt affordability. I'm really liking seeing that. But I'm a bit confused when I read that, and maybe someone picking it up. I've probably seen those numbers a few times. So when I'm seeing 118 mil, 84 mil, and that, so what exactly do we owe, and how well are we?
So through the chair, probably the confusion there is really around the true external debt versus net debt, because council has 10 million on deposit at the moment, roughly. So is at the end of the year. So the net, we talk about gross debt and net debt. So our actual gross debt is 96.4. But the net debt is 84 million. So, and the budget was 118 million. So, but part of that variance is the underspend in the capital program, but also it also is impacted on by the prior year brought forward balance as well, because your annual plan is done before your, effectively before last year's annual report's done. So it depends if you're talking net debt or gross debt.
Yeah, through Mr. Yeah, thank you. The reason I want you to repeat that, cover off a few times myself, is that externally that kind of looks confusing. You know, I'm thinking if these reports are going to be meaningful for someone who doesn't want to pick it up, be the odd person out there who doesn't want to read that, I think we need to actually try and clarify, try and make that as simple as we can. What is the debt? So when you say net or gross, they're thinking like their household. What do I actually owe? My mortgage is this, bank cards are this, what is it? I know we're a complicated beast, but I think if you're going to put these out and you want us to engage with the community, they need to think like that. So I'm kind of thinking maybe there's some words on that. And I'm going to go to page 8 through you, Mr. Chair, where we talk surplus.
Sorry, which page?
So page 8, where we've got that surplus, and you do explain it's an odd accounting term, etc., where it's probably a capital asset performance rather than a surplus. I'm kind of thinking again, if I'm the average person reading that, I would just switch off. So I'm just thinking the words where if it's a surplus, you're kind of thinking you've got something but really probably relating to capital asset performance. Maybe just, if you want them to engage, we need to make sure they understand. That's probably also people around the table. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think when we put out the summary, which we've got to put out later, we'll be considering all of these comments and incorporating. So thank you for raising that. At this stage, I'd like to do what we've traditionally done in the past, and that's invite Audit New Zealand to, there's 2 chairs down here if you wish to join the table, and I'll offer you the opportunity to make a comment to us, to the full council, if you wish. When they're finished. I have an order of business. I've got your indication. Welcome, gents.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone, and through your chair. We are issuing an unmodified audit opinion based on the information presented within the annual report. That includes both the financial information as well as the results reported on its activities. From our perspective, it appropriately reflects the information provided and substantiated, and we don't have any concerns with the information within the annual report. One thing that I would like to just raise, and I know there's been a lot of conversation this morning about the performance of the council itself, and I know there's a lot of challenges within the organisation and what needs to be addressed. I also just want to actually acknowledge the effort that's gone into from all parties, especially in the financial department. The cooperation, it's an immense amount of work to actually compile this document and everything that goes with it. So I really want to acknowledge that. I think it went really quite well compared to my previous experience. I just want to take this opportunity and thank everyone for that. Especially, I think there's a lot of people that keep forgetting this was an LTP year. So the workload on the members are quite significant, and to be able to deliver, I mean, the baselines have been readjusted with the new LTP going forward. I'm hopeful that there might be improvements, and hopefully we'll see a better result next year. So just thank you to everyone from that side.
Thank you. Very welcome comments. So, taking the final question, because I propose to move the motion shortly on behalf of the Mayor, who's not here today, and I'm appreciative of her comments in her letter, which is attached in the report today. But Councillor Lawrie?
You're a very kind man, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Question.
I am a little bit stuck on this figure about cycling, and I'll explain why. The idea that there are fewer people using active transport to get to work and school today than there was a year ago, I just really struggle with that. And I think part of the problem, and maybe this can be explained to me, is that this is talking about the number of residents who used a bicycle. And of course, active transport includes bicycles, scooters, skateboards, walking, and all those people use the cycling infrastructure. So did the survey just ask people who were riding bicycles, or did it ask people who were using active transport?
Through the chair, I'd have to go back and check the exact question, but why don't I do a bit of work on this and let you know if there are other figures that we're drawing on, exactly what the question was, how this compares to the national trend, because I think you need some more background.
And the other question I'd like an answer to through the chair, if that's okay, is whether or not this included children going to school, because in the report it just says work. And if actually the number of people using more active, there are more people using active transport to get to work and school, it would be important. I think it's important we know that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, as the Chairman of the Governance Committee and sitting in this chair today, it really does give me a deal of pleasure to be able to move this motion. As Chair of Governance Committee, my concern is very much that we balance our books, and the outcome that our rating income was very close to what was required for operations. I'm very pleased with that, because there have been times when we've overspent, and at this time we've had very good management of our finances. Our debt, your point about our debt, well, our debt, the net debt, is 84 million, it's quite clear. That's way below what our benchmark is, and it's way below what our budget was. So it's very, very good, and I'm very pleased to see that is a situation. And accordingly, I will move the motion that's up here with the inclusion of the words including the audit opinion. I'll call for a seconder. Seconded, Councillor Dahlberg. Is there any discussion of the motion? It's procedural. We have to have this done by the end of October. There's no discussion. So before I put it, I will take the opportunity to thank the Chief Executive most profusely for coming in where he did halfway through our particular year, and as he says, he's got a small engine. I think he's got a pretty good engine, but the engine in the staff is improving. And I think our Audit and Risk Committee, I want to thank the members of the Audit Risk Committee and the Chairman, and our Commercial, and our forestry operation people who are here today. I want to thank everyone actually for getting us to the position where we are ready to put out an annual report, which I am proud of anyway, and I think the council can be proud of. Are there any further comments? Councillor Skinner? Well, Mr. Murray,
Thank you.
I'm quite happy for you to have a comment.
Well, it's just a question on the resolution, if I may. I just wondered how the last one works, delegates to the Mayor and the Chief Executive when the Mayor's actually overseas. Is that...
Well, there will be an acting Mayor.
Acting Mayor. Okay, thank you. That was all. I just wouldn't want you to sort of put yourself into a hole.
I accept the responsibility having been appointed by the Mayor. And Councillor Skinner?
Yeah, no, I support the motion we've got on the table, but I agree with that. It's very good. It's very detailed in here. What my commentary is a lot of food for thought that we've had here today. Like I said, some of those ollies are sweet and some are sour in the mix. Just looking at things like the landfill, etc. We've made a bonus million on that. So things like that we can take back. Should we be reducing our charges for rubbish dumping at the dump site, etc. Those sorts of things we need to look back on and looking forward. But my main concern is being the transport, whether the surveys are correct or not. Lesser usage of bus, lesser usage of bicycles, delayed times in travel on Waimea roads, etc. Those sorts of things are going to ring loudly with our public. But it was nice to see that our rating was close to what our spending was within that thing. But there's some areas of improvement. But no, all good. I support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to say that we can't be complacent. Now, we are reviewing, as it says here, we are reviewing the performance, activities and the performance, and I am an optimistic person and I don't like dwelling on the negatives. But we had a vision at the beginning of the year, last year, and right at the top was infrastructure, environment, performance, as far as the organisation is concerned, and we're way down. For example, in stormwater, we haven't achieved 60% of our target, 67% of our target, transport 63% of our target, and environment, that is also in the vision, 50% of our target. And when people say to me, Mel, nothing's happening, you aren't doing anything, the council isn't doing anything. Well, one of the reasons is we haven't spent close to, what was it, 45 million or something of that kind, and that generates a lot of activity and a lot of jobs for people and a clear indication to people that we're moving forward. So I'm regretfully disappointed that we're slipping in our core areas. We haven't performed in our core areas. Doesn't matter which way you slice it and dice it, we have not performed. So let's talk. And if we don't lift our game next year and we're not led by our Chief Executive and our staff to meet our targets and perform a lot better than this, well, I think we'll be history. I really do. I think we've got to face it, each and every one of us, that and if we produce another one like this next year, I'm convinced we will be. So we'll be wanting a lead, and I think we'll get it from our staff and Chief Executive to contain us, not to be too optimistic with our targets and our budgets, because that's what it appears like to me, that we've been far too optimistic in what we wanted to achieve. And then you get to the point where you overpromise and you underdeliver. And that could creep in here, and that worries me too. And then, of course, the communication that I discussed earlier is something that we need to put a lot of work into, the communication with the people. I am for continually explaining to people what our statements from the council mean, what our decisions mean. Now, I wonder to myself why I should be having to do that. So we need to look at that. If we're producing statements to the media and the public don't quite comprehend what they're all about, need clarity, well, I think that's an area that needs to be looked at too. And it shows there in the results that it slipped from 54% 3 years ago to 36 or something now. Now, that is a red flag if ever you saw one. It absolutely is. So we have a smart little city. I love the title. I love the fact that we've got a vision, but we've got to just come together and achieve it.
I've got to tell you, I've been timing you, and you've passed your time limit. You've become a little bit repetitive, but your points are taken, and I want to make the point to the full council that we have a situation where now we have the opportunity to go to our committee meetings, to participate as full elected members, and make sure that we learn from what's in this annual report. We can always do better, so it's incumbent upon all of you to play your role, take on board any lessons that we have learned, and incorporate them into the next year's annual report, which is only going to be ending 8 months away. So we're well into the next year. Did I have any other speakers before I put it? Oh, Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you. I'm actually quite encouraged by, I guess, what we see here in terms of the financial controls. But maybe it's my position in life, but I don't share Councillor's previous doom and gloom about the state of council and what's going forward, because this is the previous year. And all the work that council did around setting its vision, setting those priority pillars, is the work that we have resourced up, and we knew a lot of these results were coming. And we saw them, and we responded with the Chief Executive to resource them up so the organisation can perform going forward. So I think this is simply just a reminder that of the good work that we did in the LTP to address these very things. So I very much look forward to the result in a year's time, and I do have confidence, and based on what the Chief Executive explained about the staff resource and how that's going, that the results will be a lot stronger in the next year.
Thank you, Councillor Rutledge. Councillor Laurie, you're setting a record on the number of times that you've spoken, but I'll allow you one more time.
You're setting a record for generosity.
Thank you. I'm always like that.
So actually, I want to actually ask a question, if it's okay, that has come from thinking about what I've just heard. Does the Chief Executive, through the Chair, expect next year's report to have more achieved results than what we're looking at in this report?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Good. So I just want to conclude the discussion now. Councillor Dalrymple.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm supporting Councillor Rutledge's comment as well. And what I found, I've only been here 2 years, but the first year was a whole lot of investigation about how we function and what our resources are, and what our targets are, or what even our when we put through reports and what the scoping was. And if we don't actually, as the councillors, deliver that as a better outcomes or better information to the staff and the Chief Exec, it does make a challenge for some of those statements you're seeing through. And I'm just thinking of one there was in our waters. The previous report I read, we were fabulous. And then suddenly we went bad, and it all became because we had some rain when someone's out there measuring the quality of the water. I'm going, that just, nothing wrong with the river. It's always been the same. When it rains, it gets murky. And so you get a reading and it comes up unachievable. You can hardly blame the staff for that. What we can do, though, is actually get better ways in how we measure stuff, including, i.e., are people cycling to work or not?
Thank you.
If that's what someone wants to focus on myself, I'm kind of thinking that's taken care of itself. The bus tickets, all those things that people are talking about have been discussed this year. We don't see them in the budget, but we know with all the workload, the Nelson plan, the long-term plan, the stuff we need. So I am totally encouraged, and I'd just like to say thank you to the staff and for the people putting this together, and I'm looking forward to next year, or we're partway through this. And also the quarterly reports we're now generating, so we stay on track, not hearing about at the end of the year what I had in the previous 2 years. So I'm actually looking forward with some positives and some outcome here for our city. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Murray.
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. Look, I just wanted to reiterate something that Mr. Cortez said and congratulate the staff for preparing this very complex document in the annual report. It's very much burdened by legislation that says what we've got to do, and some of the reading does make it difficult, and I'm sure the summary will bear out. One of the things I look for in these sorts of annual reporting processes is any surprises from what we've seen during the year, particularly financially. And look, again, I'd say I haven't seen anything in the numbers here that surprised me at this point, which just gives us a lot of confidence that what we see during the year in terms of our numbers has a bit of robustness about it, and we can rely on those, so that's a good tick. Look, I know there's a bit of concern about the activity reporting, and that needs some work and focus, which I'm hearing. But the other side of that is that the council should be very, very happy that it actually has financial capacity to deal with these things into the future. So I'm looking at these numbers here and I'm going, okay, we've got some challenges, but do we have our backs against the wall in terms of the dollars and the cents, and do we have the financial ability to achieve what we want to achieve? And we've got capacity here, so that's great. That means we can implement our plans and we can do what we need to do. If we did have our back to the wall, we'd be having a different conversation. A completely different one. So it's very good that we have a good position to springboard off and work forward with. The other thing is, don't underestimate the size of this organisation. We do have over $100 million in revenue coming through the place, and that's not small. We also have $1.5 billion of assets to manage, and that's not small. So, contextually, we've got a lot going on here, and it's good that we're raising these points and we're looking to improve our performance in these areas, and that's what we should be doing. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we can do it. We've got a good organisation, it's financially sound, and we've got our plans in place. So I'd just like to congratulate everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. So we're at the stage now where I'm almost ready to put the motion. Before I do, I'll just say, again, I'm comfortable with what we've got in front of us. If I look at Pareto's law, I'm sure that all the major items that affect the future of the city, I think we've performed well in. There are some areas where we can improve, but I think we can be very proud, and I'm very proud of what the staff and us as a council have achieved in this annual report, and thank you to Audit. So I'll call for all those in favour to say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors and visitors. Declare the meeting closed and advise that we'll be commencing a Governance Committee meeting in